Before we get into the show, a quick reminder to check out and subscribe to the Beer Edge podcast with Andy Crouch. Each week, he's doing deep dives into breweries, talking with journalists covering the beer space, and unpacking a lot of what makes the beer industry so interesting. Find the Beer Edge podcast wherever you download shows. Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Hall. From creating a gold medal-winning blonde ale to working with barrels, addressing misogyny in the beer industry, and the importance of snacks, Bess Dougherty, a brewer at Ratio Beerworks in Denver, is my guest today, and you're going to want to stick around until the end. But first, I'm happy to tell you to check out beeredge.com for articles to sign up for the newsletter and more. And you should also head over to the This Week in Rauch Beer Facebook page and follow TW Rauch Beer on Twitter and Instagram for all kinds of smoked beer goodness. And we're able to bring you this show every week thanks to these sponsors, including NZ Hops, a cooperative of master growers whose legend and cultivars have been crafted for over 150 years with creativity and passion to produce some of the world's finest hops. With a dedicated hop breeding program and farming knowledge handed down through the generations, the current day master growers proudly provide 18 unique New Zealand hop varieties to the world. Visit nzhops.co.nz or find them on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn at nzhopsltd to learn more. And the best brewmasters are obsessed with creating a high-quality, consistent product. That means reducing mash viscosity for better wort separation and increasing brewhouse efficiency. UltraFlow Max from Novozymes helps you achieve both. It's time to brew with enzymes. Increase your brewhouse efficiency and achieve faster filtration today with UltraFlow Max. Order a free sample today at brewingwithenzymes.com/beeredge. Bess Dougherty has one of the best social media accounts in the beer space these days, mostly because it doesn't largely focus on beer. With her Carhartt overalls, she's been using the front pocket to hold snacks. From cookies and chips to ice cream bars and tater tots, the snack pocket is a quirky escape from reality that celebrates between meal noshes. She's been brewing for a decade now, starting off at Wincoop, the venerable Denver brewery, before moving on to the head brewer position at the Grateful Gnome, and then more recently landing amid the pandemic at Ratio Beerworks. There, she's part of a brewing team that regularly rotates jobs. It's not just days on the brewdeck or in the cellar. And when I spoke to her last week, she had just finished keg washing for the day and was sitting on the brewery's patio with a Mexican lager. Earlier this year, the brewery took gold for the golden/blonde ale category at the Great American Beer Festival. And it's a style that isn't often thought of all that much these days, but remains important to craft beer history as well as education. Coming off the high of a big win, Bess said she quickly had to fight back against the pervasive misogyny that exists in part of the beer industry. She's been vocal and active in the fight to bring equality and better understanding to fellow professionals and consumers alike. And we're going to get into all of that. But we're going to start off on the patio at Ratio with a lager and being done cleaning kegs. Here's our conversation. Just before we started recording, you mentioned that you are sitting outside at the patio at the tap room having a beer in the middle of the day, which is not a bad way to spend a few hours. Not that the show is 2 hours long. What's in your glass right now?
Right now I'm drinking Cityscapes, which is our Mexican lager.
What do you like about it?
It's just crisp and refreshing, and we use a good amount of like flaked corn in there, and I just love that flavor that the corn imparts in my lagers. Unfortunately, we don't have limes, but you know.
That just sounds like a taproom oversight. Like somebody should be in trouble for that.
Yeah.
Or you should have lime flavored puree or syrups or something like a lot of other brewers.
Good call. We do have lime flavoring.
Do you actually have lime flavoring at the brewery right now?
Yeah, we do a special beer for one of our draft accounts. We make their house beer for them, and it's light ale with lime and a little bit of orange essence. It's delicious, and their tacos are fantastic.
Well, see, I'm helping you out already, and I was just trying to make a joke, and I love that you just have it in the back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good call.
Yeah. That's like all these stout breweries where, next to the coffee machine, then you can just walk down to the lactose supply and you don't even need to have fresh milk in anymore. It's kind of fun. Mm-hmm. So Ratio, you've been there for a little while now.
Yeah.
And I dig this sort of brewing model that they have where you're telling me everybody does everything in the brew house.
Yeah.
What's appealing about that? Because I know, there's some folks who, want to come up and they want to, they want to grow and they want to get better titles and more responsibility or more prestige or something like that. But when it sort of, sounds like the communist, working plan, there's got to, you knew that going into this. So like, what was the appeal to you as a brewer who had been at, a couple of other places beforehand?
I personally just love this model, just cross-training everybody. I feel like makes the staff just more well-rounded. Like obviously when people like take vacations or are sick, it's like not a super crazy situation because everyone can do everything. And then like personally just not doing the same thing day in and day out. Like, yesterday I got to brew beer and today I get to like wash kegs and fill kegs. And it keeps the job from getting monotonous because especially in a production brewery, definitely could get there very quickly, I think.
But going back and washing kegs though, that I don't know how many brewers I've talked to who are like the day that they know that they never have to do that again is one of their happiest. But is there appeal to go backwards? And I'm not as necessarily backwards, but to like do stuff that, I don't know, you did at the beginning of your career?
Honestly, like keg washing days are still one of my favorites. And I've been doing this almost a decade. Every part of the brewing process and packaging process is so insanely important. Like making sure the cleaning's right, making sure your chemicals are being dosed properly. And I think if brewers get to the point where they think something like keg washing is beneath them, they're probably not going to be a cool person to work with or be around because, that's just part of the job. You do everything that needs to get done to get the beer in its best shape and form to the consumer. And anyone who's not willing to do any step in that process, I don't have time for people like that. And I hope I never become a person like that.
I love that perspective. That's like, I hadn't thought about it that way, but now I'm rethinking all of the conversations I've had about keg washing in the past. All right. You just said though, that it's one of your favorite things to do. All right. How, why? Like the specific act of keg washing.
Specific act of keg washing is one of those.
That's the first time I've asked this question on this show, but yeah.
That's great. It's just one of those things where you get to go into autopilot mode and it's almost like meditation for me. Like I don't have to be like super involved in a process. It's just like tap the kegs, flip the valves, hit the start button, take them off, rinse, repeat kind of thing. And it's one of the only times where I just get to be more inside my own head and be reflective with my thoughts and stuff. So like I view like keg washing or like hand loading the canning line or hand labeling cans. All those things are to me like just my meditation time in life. So I really enjoy them.
I dig that because it can be hard to find those moments like at work during the day. I know we talk a lot about mental health and the importance of it, but finding it during the middle of your day while you're doing something, do you find that I don't know, helps in other arenas? Like helps in like helps the rest of your day along?
I think so. I do just kind of treat it as a meditation where I can like go over like if there's something else going on in like my personal life or something. It gives me time to just think and process those things, and just, you know, especially if you got one of those like 7 hours of keg washing, that's a lot of time to think through and work through a ton of like interpersonal things. And sometimes I do just like think about work instead of personal, and just like how we can improve different processes or like different styles I want to brew and things like that. But I try and use it as my like just personal meditation time, because like I don't live alone. I'm constantly either at work or at home or around other people. And so finding any of that time to just have the self-reflection and the like in my head alone time.
That makes sense.
It's what I'm here for. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So if that's one of your favorite, is there something on the other end of that stick that is not as much fun?
Let's see. A few of my least favorite things. I hate trying to come up with beer names. I'm just terrible at it. Like the last brewery I worked at when I was in charge, I was the head brewer there for about 4 years. And it was things like Blonde Ale, IPA number 2, Pale Ale. Like I just don't give a crap about naming beers, and especially with all the cease and desist flying around the industry and stuff, I would rather spend my creative time on the actual recipes.
Yeah.
And let's see. I don't like, every once in a while we have to jump kegs, which is like pulling beer out of the half barrel and transferring it into like a sixtel. And it's super easy and quick to do, but for some reason I just really hate it. So I always put it off till the end of the day. I don't, like, it gets done.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to be happy about.
But it's just hanging over your head until it's time to log out for the day.
Yeah.
The fact that you guys are kegging beer at all right now sort of shows that the world is opening up a little bit more again these days, right? Because I mean, kegs were just kind of sitting stagnant for almost a year, if not more.
I mean, fortunately, Ratio has had a really solid footprint around town as far as draft goes. So with places opening back up, that's definitely picked up. But they also early in the pandemic got a little Gosling canning line and started packaging a few of their core brands. And the packaged canned beers has just taken off. Like we've had record-setting outside sales months, I think like 3 months in a row, like June, July, August. So like
that's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming out the other side, well, hopefully there's not another lockdown, but going through the last 18 months and being able to be more successful than you ever have been is just spectacular. And so cool to be a part of a team and at a place where, you know, the ownership had that forethought and foresight and pivoted when necessary instead of just kind of waiting things out to see what would happen. It was just decisive action very early on, and that I think helped save this brand for sure, or just keep it thriving,
keep it going. So in wearing all of the different hats or sharing the brewery load, I know online you'll sometimes refer to yourself as a barrel troll, and I love talking with brewers about cellaring, and you know, and sort of the critical importance of it, because when it comes to visiting a brewery, you know, consumers can see shiny stainless, or they can see wood and barrels and stuff like that, but they're not necessarily thinking about how it's maintained. They're oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this, of going right to the final end product. You know, oh, what's it going to taste like? But there's so much that goes into, you know, tending to the barrels. Can you sort of talk about how you approach that, and I don't know what those days are like and what you're doing to make sure that when it's finally time to package it, if kegs or cans or whatever, that it's as good as it can be.
Yeah, I mean, cellar work is just, I mean, honestly, I love it. I love my brew days, but just how on top of your process you have to be in the cellar, because once you hit cold side, that's when everything can go wrong. On a brew day, it tends to be like, if things go wrong, you can make adjustments along the way to like hit your final gravities and things like that. But as far as cellar work goes, you just have to be so on top of your game at all points to ensure that nothing bad happens to that beer. And I like how meticulous you have to be, and I like the smell of peroxyacetic acid. So like, it's cool when we get to use that.
What is the aroma of that? What is the smell of that?
It kind of burns your nostrils. It's like a chemical burn, but in a very like weirdly comforting way to me. I don't know. Yeah. But like, it's one of those chemicals, like if you spill it, you'll have to like clear out the bar or restaurant because it will hurt people. But it's just kind of burny.
It'll bring the fire department. Yeah.
Like, it's not like gasoline, but that would be the closest that like common folk would know that smell. It's just that weird, like, you shouldn't like it, but you do.
Like sniffing glue as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like the barrel troll name I actually took when I was still working at Wing Coop years ago. I got put in charge of the barrel, like actual wooden barrel program there, and essentially was given a blank check to buy all the barrels I want. I got to like make specific recipes for each round of barrels and stuff. It was really cool, and I loved it so much. I love working with wood. But at that time, too, the barrel room was like in the dark, weird corner of the basement in that like 1820s building. And so I just like spend a lot of time in this dark, creepy basement room with my barrels. And that's when I became the barrel troll. And it's just stuck with me because I love it. Because it also translates, like, a barrel is the measurement for volume of beer. So I'm still working with barrels,
It's just kind of different. Yeah. I've been talking about wood a lot recently in barrels on the show. And everybody has their own approach and, what they're looking for and what speaks to them as a brewer and, recipes and et cetera, et cetera. When you had the blank slate at Wing Coop of all places, a venerable institution, what appealed to you as a brewer? Like what were you trying to bring in, and then what were you trying to put in them?
So part of it was, I like the challenge, because once you like, wood is just, it's crapshoot. And especially trying to get clean beer out, like clean barrel aged beer, it's a lot more challenging than like a sour barrel aged beer. So I enjoyed that challenge. I also was good friends with one of the original distillers at Law's Whiskey House, also here in Denver.
Yeah.
And just having that years-long friendship and relationship, I was able to get really cool barrels from them and like super fresh. Like there's one time the barrels went from full of whiskey to full of beer in less than 16 hours. Like we just had our timing perfect. It was beautiful. And I like the challenge of also pushing the idea of what people think barrel-aged beer should taste like. I'm a huge fan of this dirty little word called balance in my beer. And so I would always, monthly tasting of the barrels, especially with the super fresh ones, because I was able to pull the flavor that I was looking for. Sometimes it was as little as 3 months from those barrels. And I so often had people tell me, like coworkers, my mom, a bunch of customers told me that they don't typically like barrel-aged beers, but the stuff I was doing there was in such a different way because it was aggressively barrel-aged that people who thought they didn't like barrel-aged beers were really enjoying them. So
okay. Can you go just a little bit deeper on balance though, and what that means for you in a barrel-aged beer? Because like balance for a long time always meant, malt versus hops, which, I always was frustrated by because it didn't account for water or yeast as well. And like a 4-way balance, I always thought was, better than a 2-way. But, that's what something like an IPA or, lager or whatever, like when you add that fifth ingredient of wood in there, what works balance wise for you?
So for me with the barrel aging, the balance comes from a combination of the base recipe and what beer. That's why it was so cool that I was able to make specific beers for different rounds of barrels that we got, because approximately 6 of these wooden barrels would fit a 10-barrel batch of beer, which was, we had like half-size fermenters at Wing Cube. It was a 20-barrel system, but I could easily do a 10-barrel of a bigger beer. And being able to like develop recipes specifically for like, if I'm getting a round of rye whiskey barrels instead of bourbon, I'm not going to put the same beer in both typically because I want the beer catered to that type of whiskey. And then the balance for me comes in that everything you're extracting from the barrel should be a complement to the beer and not overpowering it. Like the recipe of the beer and the barrel should complement each other, and neither one should be overpowering, and it should always add something to the base beer, but without just like licking wood,
Yeah. Is there, when you're talking about laws and like 16 hours in between losing its whiskey and getting beer, is there, I don't know, I haven't really thought about the proximity of barrel sources to breweries in the past, and it sort of got me thinking about fresh hop wet hop season, which we're still kind of in right now, or on the tail end of it at least, of the brewers up in Yakima or close to hop farms wherever in the country, like getting it in, and can it be minutes or hours or 10 hours, whatever. Is there something to be explored, do you think, about the location of barrel source and brewery? I guess there's something that can be, I don't know, uniquely created, specially created out of proximity.
I think so. Like Laws does this cool project, and there's a few breweries around town that have done it, where the brewery will get the used whiskey barrel and they'll age beer in it. And then when they're done, send it back to the distillery, and then the distillery ages another round of whiskey. So they just pass the barrel back and forth. And like, I can't see someone without a distillery right down the road being able to do that kind of project,
Yeah.
And yeah, just the fresher you get a barrel, the better it's going to be for beer too. Because as the longer the barrels sit empty, the drier the wood gets, and then you have to steam and rehydrate. And if you can avoid any of those steps that are potential contamination risks, that's always a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of the time it's the, I don't know, like the provenance of the barrels, where people want to say what distillery it's from, especially if it's like a really well-known Kentucky operation. But it almost strikes me that, even a smaller distiller, if they're doing something locally nearby, that it's probably going to be better for the beer itself.
Yeah. And I think on the consumer end too, like, I don't know about other cities, but I know for damn sure in Denver, people are very proud to be like hyper local shoppers and consumers. So personally, I think it goes over better if we say like Laws whiskey barrel aged versus like Maker's Mark barrel aged. Like our customer base is going to prefer the local.
We'll get back into the conversation in about 30 seconds, but first, a word of thanks to the sponsors who help keep the mics hot around here. NZ Hops, a cooperative of master growers whose legend and cultivars have been crafted for over 150 years to produce some of the world's finest hops. NZ Hops are like no others, unique in their flavors and aromas. Visit nzhops.co.nz to explore more. And the best brewmasters are obsessed with creating a high-quality, consistent product. That means reducing mass viscosity for better wort separation and increasing brewhouse efficiency. Ultraflow Max from Novozymes helps you achieve both. Order a free sample today at brewingwithenzymes.com/beeredge. And now back to Bess Dougherty of Ratio Beerworks in Denver, Colorado. So when you were at Wincoop, I earlier this week I was visiting some breweries in my region here in the Northeast, and I visited a couple of older places that have been around since the 1990s, sort of these more venerable places, and they're still turning out really good beer. And it's a fun place to visit, and hasn't really feel like it's changed all that much in the last 20 or so years since I first walked in there. And I think about Wincoop in the same way. I enjoy the beer. Like, it walks in, it feels familiar, it sort of feels good. But after a while, like, consumer perceptions start to change, and there are, in a lot of cases, and I'm not saying this specifically about Wincoop, but there are in some cases brewers that say, okay, well, it works this way, so this is what we're just going to keep doing, and we're not going to try to reinvent the wheel or do anything else like that. And a brewer can either go along with that and be perfectly happy, or try to grow and shake up their career and continuously sort of push forward. And when I think about having visited Wincoop and having visited Ratio, they are different in a lot of ways. And I'm wondering, for you and your career over the last 10 years, what has inspired you to make moves to grow? Is it innovation? Is it, I don't know.
I mean, part of it is innovation. And part of it is, when my time was done at Wincoop, we always joke that Wincoop is a launchpad brewery because so many brewers throughout the years have gone through that place and either opened their own or gotten jobs elsewhere. And so, I knew going in there that I wasn't going to be there forever, and I was cool with that because it was a great spot to learn. I met phenomenal people there. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah.
And then I got the opportunity to help open a new brewery, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to be a head brewer yet, but there's only one way to find out. So I did it, and I crushed it. And then, the pandemic hit, and the owner decided to just not have a brewer anymore. So,
sure.
And then again, thanks to Wincoop, I landed at Ratio because Jason Zembrennan, one of the founders and head brewer here, worked at Wincoop a year before I did. He left. So we knew all the same Wincoop people, and that's how we got introduced. And over the years, him and I had talked about me coming here at some point, and the timing finally just worked out.
Is there a benefit, though, to a launchpad brewery? Because especially one that has been around and knows the ropes as well as a place like Wincoop, because I'm thinking of some other brewers that I've met in the last couple of years who have interned or spent a little bit of time at a brewery that had itself only been open for 6 months or a year or whatever, before they leave to go open up their own place. And I don't know, it feels like you can it's going to be a different experience, but having a place that knows the mistakes not to make because they've been around for 20 plus years, it's probably going to turn out better brewers than maybe places that, still haven't even made a quarter of the mistakes that they will in the course of their lifetime.
Exactly. And that's the Wincoop family is what we call it. It's so big and so great. And we've all learned a ton there because it is the generational learning too. The head brewer in the 90s taught all these people, and with the staggering of the staff. And that was another place where it was a team usually of like 3 or 4 brewers on staff who all did everything. And then you have this generational knowledge that's been passed down, how to not fuck shit up, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's why I am forever grateful that I was able to get my start there, because I feel like I definitely learned a lot more, not necessarily what to do, but like you were saying, what not to do, just from like the stories of mistakes that were made there that get passed around and passed down and stuff. And I definitely feel that made me a way better brewer than if I had just gone somewhere in its infancy that was still figuring it out. I'd get there eventually, but just having that knowledge to pick from and learn from, it's definitely a lot different, and it's very, very cool.
Yeah, no,
like I said, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And yeah, just the learning and the people I met, and there's Wing Coop kids all around the country, and I mean, thankfully I've kind of stumbled into my 2 jobs since then, but I know on a resume, like nationwide, Wing Coop's gonna look better than Brewery XYZ that opened in like 2019,
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the reasons that Wing Coop is as well known as it is because every year, people in the beer world come into Denver for the Great American Beer Festival. And for years and years and years, you'd make the pilgrimage to Wing Coop. You used to go to Falling Rock. All
R.I.P., man.
I know. Isn't that
so sad?
It really is. It really is. I was out there that week for the final week, and just being in there one last time was really special. But also just when I was out there just a couple weeks ago, not having it there, it stung a little bit. Yeah. Did you want to share your thoughts on Falling Rock? Were you about to launch into a poetic?
It just makes me so sad, and like I feel lucky and blessed that like I still live in town. Like I still last week I went to Epic for the Big Bad Baptist release, and Chris and Beth were there, and Paul, and like a bunch of the old Falling Rock crew, and I still get to see them, so I'm very lucky. And while it hurts, like that was my first regular date night spot when I turned 21 and stuff. I've been going there my entire drinking adult life, and it hurts. It hurts a lot, but I am so insanely happy that Chris finally gets a break, and him and Cheryl can just travel and relax. Yeah. I care about them as humans more than I care about having that bar to go to, I guess.
Makes sense. I dig it.
Yeah.
But on the Wing Coop front, though, everybody would come into town for, the Great American Beer Festival, which was not held this year in its formal festival capacity, but but beers were judged and awards were handed out. And you were part of the ratio team that won gold in the golden or blonde ale category, which is not one that I often think about anymore. And,
and it's one of those.
I mean, it's one that like brought the industry up over the last 40 years. Like it was a staple of a tap tower at any brewery. But I don't know. I don't think about it all that much anymore. But clearly, you guys do, and do it really well.
Right. Yeah, that was cool, and it was on my mind because the last place I worked at, I had a blonde ale that was the first beer I ever brewed on that system. It was one of our top selling beers. It was just like 4.5% super light, dry, crushable beer. And, talking with the team at Ratio and stuff, those are the kind of beers we want to drink. So like, let's focus on this. And actually the beer I had made at the Gnome advanced at GABF the 2 years I entered it. So when we were trying to pick categories this year, I made a suggestion about putting Domestica in blonde category if we could get it finished just a touch drier. So we just adjusted the mash temp a little bit and got it where we wanted it, and had our fingers crossed. And that Wednesday, I think it was at one point that week, because we kept bottles from the bottling room for GABF submission of it.
Okay. Yeah, I think the awards were announced that Friday, the 10th. Yeah.
So we were tasting them like as the judging was happening.
Okay.
So we could know what the judges were tasting. And I remember Phil, our lead brewer here, tasted it. It's way too hoppy. It's not going to do very good. I was like, well, we got this. Trust me. We got this. And then sure as shit, we did.
So I haven't had the beer, but I am, what in your mind, so what, describe it, like, describe it for us of, what this beer is and how it tastes, and, what goes into a gold medal winning blonde ale, because I'm sure now that everybody's listening to this, they're all going to start running out, and we're going to start the blonde ale revolution or the blonde ale resurgence. Yeah.
Summer cream ale's over, now it's the fall of blonde. It's fine.
It's a golden autumn for everyone.
Oh, I love it. That's beautiful.
Get it on a shirt, get it on the store. Yeah.
Let's go. Domestica is the name of the beer. And it's been on tap at Ratio pretty much since day one. It was Jason, the founder, head brewer. That's his pride and joy, his little baby. And it's just, it's super simple grain bill. 2-row and a little bit of some specialties. And then just Hallertau and Saaz with Cali ale yeast. With blonde ales, there's really not much to them.
Yeah.
And it's one of those styles, like, just keep it simple, stupid kind of thing. Using more of those old school hops, I think, just lends itself well to the style.
Do you find that, like, is it still a gateway beer for the style? Is that still a gateway for a lot of early drinkers, or is it a tougher sell in, like, the land of hazies and pastry stouts and et cetera, et cetera?
Oh God.
No, because I feel like I'm always the curmudgeon who's like, kids today don't appreciate the classic styles.
That's totally me.
All they know is Citra and Mosaic, and
I'm old and fucking jaded like that too. I want, like, good, clean beer flavored beer, man.
Yeah.
And I think there's still, like, a huge market for that. And with beers like Domestica or even Cityscapes or Mexican Lager, I feel like the best place for those beers is not, like, new as in young drinkers, but new as in new to craft drinkers. Like, my uncle loves Corona. It's all he ever drinks. So I brought him a 6-pack of our Mexican lager, and he actually, like, fell in love with it. And was like, I didn't know, like, craft breweries made beers like this. Like, yeah, we do. So, like, I think a lot of non-craft drinkers are just so intimidated, by the IPAs, by the hazies, by the milkshake fruity bullshits, that beers like Domestica are a good reminder. Like, not all craft beers like that. If you normally drink Budweiser, we got you covered.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So you were confident going into GABF, and then you guys got the gold. The winners were announced on September 10th, I think, this year. You have your celebratory parties, and then on September 12th, you took to social media and you wrote, "Nothing like GABF/CBC," meaning the Craft Brewers Conference, which was actually held in Denver this year in lieu of GABF. "Nothing like GABF/CBC to remind me just how misogynistic the beer industry is."
Yeah.
What happened?
Just, So most of the weekend was great. And then Sunday afternoon, a fellow brewer friend of mine and I went to my favorite neighborhood brewery, a lovely little place called Call to Arms that does really great beer-flavored beer.
Yep.
And the only other guy at the bar was a brewer from like upstate New York. And as the conversation's going, we're like, oh, all three of us are brewers. Like, let's get chatting. And little things like talking over me for a bit. And then the medal thing came up because he was saying he didn't win this year. And my friend I was with was like, well, Bess's brewery actually won this year. And, you know, little things in between here and there. But then when the guy was getting ready to leave, he congratulated my friend 5 separate times on his medal. And every time my friend corrected him, was like, I didn't win. That was Bess. It's her medal. I didn't medal at all. And the guy never once congratulated me, even after my friend was correcting him. And it's just, good fucking God. Like, that was a little more of an extreme example, but, you know, other little things, like some of our taproom staff just having some incidents throughout the week. Nothing super terrible, but just like, God damn. Get a bunch of old white and younger, bunch of white dudes drunk in the same town, and it can be quite unpleasant for females.
And I mean, you've chronicled this in the past, and you've spoken about this before, of not only experiences in the breweries, but out in the consumer spaces and certainly at festivals. And
yeah.
You know, festivals are starting to come back a little bit. Seems like I'm getting emails more and more every week about new ones that are either going to try to happen in the next couple of weeks or being slotted for 2022. You know, there's been conversations about code of conduct, certainly. And then, you know, also who should participate in beer festivals. If, you know, the company has a good culture, yes. If it doesn't, you know, maybe sit some out until you get your act together. But there's so much more that can be discussed about, I don't know, how to have a festival where you, or, you know, any woman or anybody walks away at the end of the day, at the end of the fest, you know, feeling bad, feeling shitty because somebody was bad or shitty. Where do you think, let's just start with festivals, but I mean, what's it been like in the past? And how can some of these improve, do you think?
I mean, I've had really awesome times at festivals, and I've had really terrible times and like being groped by either consumers or fellow brewers, things like that, which just will ruin anyone's evening, especially if it's a brewer you thought was a friend and they violate you like that. It's a really shitty day, you know? But I think as far as festivals go, I do think having a code of conduct that every participating brewery has to agree to, I think having just a higher security profile, or at least like maybe volunteers from a women's nonprofit who can be like designated watchers kind of thing, that if you're feeling uncomfortable, you can talk to just a not security guard, but a person who's been trusted with this to talk to the festival owners kind of thing. And I think just, you know, calling people out when you see that shitty behavior, which, you know, does fall more on the guys in the industry because dudes listen to other dudes. They often don't listen when women call them out on things because we're just old hags. What do we know? But if fellow dudes call out dudes when they're being shitty, that's going to make a huge change in the culture. So I'd like to see that. I challenge all you dudes to call out your friends when they're being shitty. And I don't know, like, I feel maybe just for the people pouring, you hope that we would all be responsible adults, but we've all worked festivals where we've had a little too much to drink. And I think maybe just anyone working the festival having to have a limit on their intake so they can, one, just not be a drunken idiot and shitty, but also so they can help keep an eye out for the crowds and the consumers. Because, you know, if someone goes to a few festivals and they're made to feel unsafe multiple times, they're probably going to stop going to festivals, and maybe they're going to be put off on craft beer because of it, you know?
Yeah.
So we all just need to hold each other accountable and lift each other up and try our best to make it an actual inclusive space instead of just saying it is.
Yeah.
And hoping for the best.
But I think so much of it goes back to, and I'll take the consumers out of this for just a second, but like it goes back to, you know, overall brewery culture and taproom culture or whatever, because, you know, when you have somebody who can't congratulate you on a well-deserved win, presumably based on your gender, that's a larger problem that exists within the industry of, you know, and you know, it's not something that I've seen all that much when I've been out, but I'm certainly aware, certainly now that it's happening more than it does. What have you seen, or have you seen anything that has worked to start to change internal culture of a brewery so that, you know, a place like, you know, wherever this was in upstate New York, won't do that again? Have you seen good examples of people working towards meaningful change, or at least had conversations with folks who have seen that?
Yeah, I mean, the rat magnet conversation definitely has sparked a lot of conversations. And how do we move forward? How do we acknowledge this? How do we change this? I know the women in the Denver brew scene, the ladies at Lady Justice, kind of started and held the first event in the space where we can just meet up once a month and talk about it and try and figure it out and come up with ideas and do like, let's all write the BA this month and see what the fuck they're doing about it, kind of thing. Try and hold our like industry leaders accountable and make sure they're holding people accountable. On a personal level, years ago, I was actually just thinking about this the other day. One of my first coworkers at Wing Coop, he's a dear friend of mine. We actually went to a concert Friday night together. But back in the day, he was just so confused why I was such an outspoken feminist and didn't understand why it was necessary. And so we started having those hard conversations and me explaining like that equality is very far away still and that women are not safe in this country around men. And he actually took the time to listen and started like finding some feminist podcasts and then, you know, paying attention when we would like go to Falling Rock after work or something and just be aware of how people interacted with me versus how they would interact with him or one of our other male coworkers. And he took the time and did the work to truly look at it and understand and try and learn about it. And he is one of the fiercest allies I know at this point. And I think, you know, on an individual level, having those, like being open, unfortunately, I would like if women didn't have to bear the burden of the education of sexism, just like people of color shouldn't have to bear the burden of the education about racism and how it's very much an issue as well. Yeah. But if you work with someone and you feel like they're open to actually learning and wanting to be a part of the solution and wanting to be better, maybe do take the time. Maybe just send them some podcast recommendations. Maybe just like, you know, having that shift beer just dig deep in those conversations. Because it's only one guy, but that guy now holds everyone he works with at the breweries he's been at since then. He holds everyone to that standard of equality and accountability. So it does make a difference, even on just a one-on-one level.
There's been a lot of focus on some of the larger organizations out there, and places that have positioned themselves as leaders or institutions or whatever in the beer space. When you've been writing letters, when you've been involved in the coordination and the outreach, do you feel like you've been getting responses? Do you feel like you've been heard?
Honestly, no. No, I feel like there's just a lot of industry leaders and organizations, I feel like, just want to say their little puff piece and hope this all goes away without doing any actionable change. And, that's to be expected, honestly. Change doesn't happen overnight. This is going to be a years-long battle to try and get good, solid change in our industry. But, as I've said many times before, this is my chosen career. This is my chosen family, and I'm going to fight like hell to make it better. So I'm in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
I can get real annoying. So, yeah.
But that's how you get stuff done.
Exactly. Change is hard. But
where do you feel like the next? I know we're in the infancy of this. We're just out of the summer where this was very intense, and there's new pressures coming up all the time, and new veins of conversation that are being open. In addition to calling out bad actors and looking for meaningful change on that front, where do you see this dialogue headed? Where do you see this conversation where the focus needs to be?
Honestly, I just really hope that people at the ownership level are the ones taking note and taking the action. Don't be afraid to fire people if they suck. They can be the best brewer in the world, but if they make your female staff or patrons uncomfortable, get them the fuck out of there. There's always going to be another brewer. I honestly would really love to see, as this continues, I would like to see the conversation also shift to focus on racism in the industry. I almost, in perfect little Bess head world, it could all come at once, but it's also not fair. Each issue deserves its own time and its own space, but I'm hoping with this instigation happening that those conversations are going to become a lot more frequent and prevalent as well.
Yeah.
Just because, craft beer does tout itself as this awesome, super inclusive industry, and it's a bunch of bullshit. So I would like to see it become an actual inclusive industry on all fronts, not just women, but legit everybody. And I don't know exactly how or why, and I know these conversations are slowly happening, but
yeah,
it's frustrating because change does take time, but it would be really cool too if we could just burn it down, start over, and get it right this time.
Do you think that's what it's going to take?
Yeah, like I said, I'm pretty fucking old and jaded. And the last few years have really worn on me, and I've always been kind of, very outspoken and a little bit radical. So, yeah, I feel society as a whole that should happen, but in beer, it's the same with both. Until the old dinosaurs die off and we can actually make good, legitimate change, it's not going to change unless we do something aggressive.
Yeah.
And I think Breeze posting was definitely a start. I know, like, quite a few people around the country lost their jobs because of that and lost their livelihoods. And
Yep.
That's good. That's fantastic. Let's keep it going. And I think, just breweries holding their people accountable, but also the flip side is, if a brewery does have a staff member has had issues, but they're taking aggressive action steps to correct and change course, like that needs to be celebrated as well.
Yeah.
I think just like straight up writing anyone in those stories off 100% is a little harsh. Some of it for sure, but we also need to allow humans to be human, and if they got it wrong, to take the steps and try and correct and give them that grace,
Yeah. I know this is a conversation that is going to continue happening for quite a while, and I know we're not going to solve the world's problems on this podcast right now.
That'd be tight, though.
Wouldn't it? I mean, I'm trying, but
girl can dream.
Yeah. Can I ask you about the snack pocket?
Yes.
We're going from heavy to light.
I'm here for it. Yeah.
Okay. You have one of the most enjoyable social media accounts in beer because, and everybody's got their own personality. Everybody does their own thing. And sometimes it's, here's a picture of our beer, or here's a picture of, our hops, or people do goofy videos or things like that. You wear overalls and in the front zipper pocket put snacks. Yes. And I want to know all about the snack pocket.
I mean, it's so dumb, but it brings me so much joy, and it brings so many people so much joy.
It does.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always been a huge fan of snacks. I'm the kind of person that's not good at like sitting and eating a meal, so I just constantly snack throughout the day.
Okay.
And then, when I don't even remember why it dawned on me or when, because I was just keeping snacks in my overall pocket pretty regularly, and then like one of my coworkers made a comment one day about my snack pocket and how stuff just kept coming out because I kept like eating it and then restashing. And I don't know, I posted the first picture on like my personal stuff, and I just started doing it somewhat regularly. And so just because it is dumb and fun, and then it became a thing around work where like anytime, I remember one time our boss brought in a box of Snickers ice cream bars, and he handed it to me. It was like, snack pocket? So of course, like I shoved the box in the pocket. It's like, yeah, it fits. All right, let's go. Whole box of ice cream bars. And then I found out at one point the marketing and management at Ratio, in one of their marketing meetings, thought it would be hilarious if I made a snack pocket account. Like, okay, if I have the full support of ownership at my job, why not?
If this counts towards my paycheck, yeah.
So the snack pocket has its own Instagram account now, and it's just really dumb. Like, I guess if there was an end goal for snack pocket beyond bringing joy to people's day, because I oftentimes tag like the brand of snack it is, and so like if I start getting snack
just fishing for endorsement deals. Yeah, exactly.
I'd be okay with that. I love snacks.
All right, what makes an ideal snack for? Because I mean, this isn't a huge pocket, right? I mean, it's just a front overall
pocket.
Yeah, so it's not that deep. Maybe it's a little bit wide, but it's not that deep.
Yeah.
So what is the best fitting snack for the snack pocket?
I think a couple of my favorites. I love the peanut butter filled pretzel bites. And they
Okay.
come in a little like baggie, so I can just have the bag open in the pocket and just like reach in and grab them. It's very handy. I did that one time with a container of tater tots. That again, if I put in a plastic bag, it probably would have been better because I got some crumbs in the pocket.
I was going to say, are you just putting like unpackaged food into your pockets? Okay.
It's all packaged. Sometimes I stage the photo to where you can't see the plastic bag, like the bear claw photo I did that with, but it was in a plastic bag in the pocket.
Okay, because that gets sticky pretty fast.
Yeah. I mean, I'm known for being a messy human anyway, so I try and negate as much as I can.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean,
are there
really
snacks that don't work in the pocket?
Yeah, chocolate, man. Chocolate's bad. Anything that can melt. Because, like, especially up on the brew deck and with the body heat, like, you just can't have it. But on the flip side of that, it's great for, like, leftover pizza. Get it nice and warmed up.
A little bit of that body heat for leftover pizza. I mean, in the past, like, I've been cool with cold pizza. And certainly, like the next morning or, fresh pizza, like still a little bit gooey. Body temperature pizza, I'm not 100% sure how I feel about.
I mean, I like things at room temp a lot, so it's just a little warmer than room temp.
Okay. All right, you come on the show for the hard-hitting questions. That's why I'm here. This is all right, but when it comes to different overalls, then, is there a company that you've encountered so far that makes a better pocket over another? And how much does material matter?
It matters a bit because I only have Carhartts.
Okay.
And the more rigid material, it's harder to fit bigger snacks in.
Okay.
But like the pinstripe lightweight ones, there's enough give in the material, you can really stuff it full.
Okay.
So that's like my big snacks. My black pair is my like winter pair. And that's just gotta be like a snack. It's kind of sad. I can fit a box of the Hello Panda cookies in there, but
I don't know what Hello Panda cookies are.
Oh, they're great. They're from like Taiwan or Japan.
Okay.
Little shortbread cookies with like chocolate filling. Chocolate's my favorite. I think they have strawberry like cookies and cream.
Okay.
They're fantastic. And that's actually a company that like reshared the Snack Pocket post. But I tagged them in.
All right. So. Final Snack Pocket question. And before I let you go, what snack do you think would pair best with your golden ale, with your blonde ale?
Okay, on the savory side, I would say sour cream and onion chips. And on the sweet side, I feel like the fudge stripe cookies.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just said chocolate doesn't work, though. Come on.
Well, as a pairing, not in the snack pocket.
As a pairing. Okay.
Or you just have like two and eat them really quick and refill it.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. All right. So I've been ending the show for the last couple of weeks by prefacing by saying that, when things were really grim, my wife and I started watching The Good Place again on Netflix. And I don't know if you've seen the show or not.
It's a great show.
Okay. So you know how it ends. And there's the green doors that you can walk through to be anywhere at any time with anybody. If such technology existed on this plane of existence, and there's a green door to your left at the brewery, when you ended this conversation and you could walk through, where would you want it to take you and who would you want to be with?
Sorry, what was the second part of that?
Like if there's a green door and you could walk into a pub anywhere, where would you want the pub to be and who would you want to be drinking with?
Oh, that's a tough one. I feel I'd want to go to London, especially you said pub. Like, of course, we're going
bar,
to the UK. I love cask beer.
Okay.
Like, it's on my hit list.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I would love to have a beer with Betty White. I bet that broad's got stories for days.
Cask Ale in London with Betty White.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
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 I'm okay with that.
All right. Bring a recorder with you when that happens, and
Okay.
and we'll post it up. Hey, thanks for taking the time this week and sitting down the show and going through all of the wide range of stuff and
Thank you so much for having me.
A good fight. Yeah. The Blonde Ale conversation had me thinking, what's a style that doesn't get the respect it deserves or has shrunk from taps and shelves that you'd like to see make a resurgence? Email me and tell me. It's John Hall, JOHNHOLL @beeredge.com, or you can always talk with me on Twitter @John_Hall. And Beer Edge is, of course, on social media @The Beer Edge. And if you love smoked beers, and of course you do, a reminder to check out the This Week in Rauch Beer group on Facebook, or you can follow along on Twitter and Instagram @TWRauchBeer. And if you're interested in advertising, please reach out to Liz Melby at liz@beeredge.com, and she'll let you know all of the information about our surprisingly affordable rates. And speaking of that, this episode was made possible by the support of NZ Hops, a cooperative of master growers whose legend and cultivars have been crafted for over 150 years with creativity and passion to produce some of the world's finest hops. With a dedicated hop breeding program and farming knowledge handed down through the generations, the current day master growers proudly provide 18 unique New Zealand hop varieties to the world. Visit nzhops.co.nz or find them on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn @nzhopsltd to learn more. And the best brewmasters are obsessed with creating a high-quality, consistent product. That means reducing mash viscosity for better wort separation and increasing brewhouse efficiency. UltraFlow Max from Novozymes helps you achieve both. It's time to brew with enzymes. Increase your brewhouse efficiency and achieve faster filtration today with UltraFlow Max. Order a free sample today at brewingwithenzymes.com/beeredge. And one last reminder to go to beeredge.com to see all that we have going on and to check out the Beer Edge podcast hosted by Andy Crouch. Steal This Beer has new episodes every Monday, and the BYO Nano podcast drops on the 15th of every month. And as for this show, Nate Schweber does the music, Jeff Quinn designed the logo, and I'm John Hall. New episodes release every Wednesday, and that's when I'm going to be back again to drink beer and to think beer.